Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Thibault Imbert, and the title that we're going to talk about will be How to Build a Framework for Customer Empathy. So, developing a customer empathy is a critical part of any growth item and team. While quantitative data allows us to understand the what, quantitative insights are the key to reveal why people behave the way they do with their product. So to statistically knowledge us more about this, we have our smartest speaker, Mr. Thibault Imbert, Director of Growth Creative Cloud at Adobe from San Francisco Bay, who answers the questions for how to build a framework for customer empathy. Over to you, Mr. Thibault Imbert. The stage is yours.
Hi, this is Thibault Imbert here from Adobe. I am a director of growth at Adobe, and I'm working on the Creative Cloud business. And I'm driving the growth strategy at Adobe. You might have heard of growth marketing, obviously, and growth hacking. And what my team does, is we do experimentation across all of Creative Cloud products, Photoshop, Illustrator, and all the products to grow the products and grow engagement in the products. What I'm going to talk to you today about is how to build a framework for customer empathy. Customer empathy is the most important thing that you need to master to really truly understand the frustration, the feelings, and the goals of your users so that you can build a better product. But on the marketing side, so that you know how to communicate, how to learn from the users, and how to get your users to be successful with your product. So with that, I'm just going to start with a little intro. Like I said, I'm working on Creative Cloud. Before that, I was a developer, software engineer, and I moved to marketing basically like 4 years ago. Started working on marketing on Spark, which is one product of Creative Cloud, and now I'm driving growth marketing on Creative Cloud. You can follow me on Twitter at Thibault_Imbert. I'm posting a lot of growth-related articles and thoughts. So if you are on Twitter, don't hesitate to follow me so that we can connect. Okay, so this is the agenda, and I'm going to start with the qual versus quantitative. This is very important to understand the difference between qualitative and quantitative insights. A lot of people sometimes run over quantitative and forget to look at quantitative and qualitative. Both are really critical, and so we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to spend some time looking at how do we create an organization. If you're in a startup or a bigger company, how do we make sure that we build an organization that is empathetic to the customers? How do we make sure that everyone in your company truly understands the users, their goals, their story, their frustration, and how do we make them successful? And then section 3, we'll talk about how do we scale? How do we make sure that we can do that at scale? So first, we're going to start with qual and quant. And this is very important we start with that. So it's going to be brief, but this is basically it. So sometimes you look at your data, and this is here a funnel from someone or your users landing on a page. This is the first step you have on the left, landing on the page, then signing up, then creating a project, and exporting a project or sharing a project. Let's say we're looking at a funnel from Microsoft Office, or we're looking at a funnel from any service that allows you to create something and export something and create something. So as a marketer, you're looking at the funnel and you're thinking, okay, I have a lot of people that are not converting from landing to sign up. There's a big leak here. I have almost here 55% of my users that are not signing up. And so you're looking at this and you might be thinking, okay, let's go and let's run with some experiments to improve that. But that is running with quantitative insights. You actually, at this point, have no insights on what's happening from the user standpoint. How are they feeling? From a qualitative standpoint, you don't have that information. So it's very important that you would actually reach out to the people that have that are landing on the page and never signing up by a chat or by other mechanisms, and try to understand why are they not signing up. What I like to tell to my team is that quantitative tells you the what of the problem, but qualitative is the only way you're going to actually understand why. So quantitative tells you the what and qualitative tells you the why. And it's very important that you understand what and why so that you can start developing hypotheses for your experimentation. So now that we clarify that, and we're going to be looking at quant and qual, we can talk about how do we actually create a empathetic product organization and putting your users first. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that everyone understands the product. And so from marketing to product managers to engineers, you want to make sure that everyone knows the product. Now you might be thinking, Thibault, this is obvious. Everyone in a company knows how to use products. Well, you'd be surprised. I've been seeing and having conversations with people in conferences, or even I've seen it in companies myself, that some people are making decisions and you realize that these people are not necessarily using the product themselves. So quantitative and qualitative, these insights won't give you a vision, right? It's not because you're looking at data from a funnel or you're talking to customers that suddenly you're going to have a vision for what the product should be. You're using quantitative and qualitative to help you validate hypotheses. Basically, qualitative and quantitative helps you reduce the risk in what you're actually doing. So if you have a thought, an idea, or a vision for something, you're using quant and qual to actually validate that and reduce the risk before you start running that experiment. So to do that, what you want to do is hire people that have genuine product interests. It's extremely critical that when you hire people that really understand the product. Because that's this kind of like genuine empathy that will help you develop a vision for the product. And also it helps everyone respect each other. That is so important that each and every member of the team understands the product so that everyone respects each other. I have seen teams where a member of the team does not understand the product or has never used the product. And this is the situation where members of the team start losing trust in other members, because how can you develop a marketing plan? How can you develop experiments when you haven't used the product yourself and you don't have that empathy? So really it starts with hiring the right people. That is very important. Then it's very important to understand your early adopters. And this is generally where you start. You have in every product a set of users that will start using your product initially in the first very quickly. These are what we call early adopters. So what you want to understand is who they are, what they do, and you want to learn as much as possible from these users. So what you want to do is track the most active users and ask yourself the following questions. Okay, who are these people and what are they doing? This is a very simple framework. What you want to know is what are the features that they use most actively? What features do they use in the first week? What's their retention? Which platform do they use? Etc. These are simple questions that you can ask yourself that will help you understand what these people are doing. We might realize that a lot of these early adopters are using mobile instead of website and desktop. Maybe that a lot of your power users are using the app only on weekends. And maybe you're going to see that some of your more advanced users, more engaged users, early adopters, are using a specific set of features initially in the first week. So why do you care about this?
Well, it's very important because here's the thing. In every product, there's a tiny portion of users that will convert and will become engaged and active. And there's a massive amount of users that will never become users. They will install your product, they will log in, sign up, launch it, and never come back. And what you want to do is say, okay, can I actually make these people that did not convert more like the people like that did convert? And so what you want to do is look at the characteristics. Which channel did we acquire these users? For instance, these engaged users maybe are coming from Twitter or social or Instagram or SEO and SEM. Is that coming from inbound or outbound marketing? But what are the channels? And then what are the methods? Was it an ad? Was it an email? What's their demographic background? Where do they live? So you want to really understand that. And once you have that information, you can then also look at uploading the emails into Facebook Insights and get a data scientist to make the data speak. One thing we do at Adobe is we run correlation analysis to find behaviors on retained users that correlate with retention. And that's extremely powerful. Basically, we ask the data scientists, can you tell us what are the things that retained users do more than the people who don't retain initially? And they work the way back and they say, well, we notice that people that retain tend to use these features more initially. And so what you want to do is say, okay, if that's a trait of an engaged user, how do I turn more users like them? And what you want to do is get the users that are normal to be engaged. So you want the normal users that are coming in to do the things that engaged users tend to do. So if you realize, for instance, that in the first day, a lot of the engaged users are setting up an invite or are setting up, let's say, their first calendar invite. Well, maybe that's part of your onboarding. You want all the users to actually start and create a calendar invite. Maybe if you notice that a lot of the people that are engaged tend to install the Chrome extension of your product if you have, well, maybe you want to actually get people to do that on day one, because you want to optimize the chances that these users will then follow the path and become engaged. Okay, so we talked about becoming a user. You need to hire people that really understand the product, that have product empathy. And then you want to look at users that are early adopters and discover as much as possible from them. Then the third step is seeding a community. And that's something that is a framework that I've used at Adobe over and over. And as you know, Adobe is very community-centric. And so this is generally how I like to do it. Well, first thing, you want to treat social media as a two-way street. You want to give a voice to your followers. Social media is not television. It's not pushing content to people. It is communicating as a two-way street. You push, and then people respond, communicate, provide feedback, and it's an exchange. It is really the way it works. If you treat social media as television, you will be basically completely unimpactful. People won't follow you, and people won't treat your social media channel as a way to really have influence and connect with your brand. So what we did is this is an example of a campaign that we did. We started seeing a community, and what we did is we created a campaign and we checked how many of the users actually are very, very active, and can we elevate these users to a VIP status? Can we make these users feel special by having them become Spark Insiders? So we did that. We detected people that were very active, and then we prompted a message that said, hey, you made it to VIP. You just unlocked access to Spark Insiders. This is an exclusive status with special perks. Do you want to be part of it? And if people said yes, and as you can imagine, the conversion on this screen is extremely high. People were able to put their email and then sign up to become Spark Insiders. And this is then the email that you would receive by having access to the Spark Insider campaign. And what we said to users is, hey, congrats, you are on your way to become a Spark Insider. You're going to get access to beta version of Spark. Spark team is going to be there to answer questions and feature requests, and you're going to be able to create your network. And what happens is, as you can imagine, users were extremely, extremely excited to be part of that community. Now, when people actually receive that email, we invite them to a Facebook group. And inside that Facebook group, there's a community of people. Now, in that Facebook group, what do? We ask them, how would you describe Spark in one sentence? We would leverage that channel as a way to test our marketing strategy. We would engage with the community to create a better product. And we're using Facebook. You're going to see why we're using Facebook. We would ask users on Facebook if they wanted to get access to the new betas. What we saw is that we created a control group, and that was an A/B test. We kept a control group of engaged users that were eligible to become insiders, but we did not elevate them. And then we elevated some, let me actually reformulate that. We kept the control groups, and that control group was the people that were already engaged and eligible to be Spark Insiders, but never got access to the Spark Insider Facebook group. And then obviously the treatment was the people that were invited. What we saw is that being part of the group, the Facebook group, increased their engagement by almost 30%. And by engagement, we meant we looked at number of images that were created in the product. So what that shows is that being part of a community on Facebook dramatically increased their engagement. And why is that? Well, it's not really hard to actually understand why. The reason why is because when you are part of a community, it lifts you up. If you have questions, if you have doubts or issues, you go back to the Facebook community, you ask your question, and then people answer. When you are looking at the pictures of your family, you see pictures of the Spark community, and you get reminded that Spark exists and that you could be using Spark to create that maybe wedding invite that you want to work on. So leverage Facebook groups as a platform. You don't have anything to build. It's already a habit for users, and you get all the insights from Facebook reports, which is extremely powerful. This is, for instance, the kinds of data that you get. The age, you can see that top countries, top cities, what is the distribution between men or women, and this is extremely powerful because then this allows you to understand better your customers. At what time do they post? What are the most active members, the top contributors, so that you can reward them and say, hey, do you want to be part of a community of ambassadors? So you want to build a product for everyone and not just power users. So you want to talk to the other extreme too. Like I said, remember, now you're talking to your most active users, and that's great. But one risk is that you're now developing a product for the most active users. There's maybe 90% of your users that are not sticking to your product, and that's a missed opportunity for you. So what you want to do is also talk to the other users that are not sticking around. So that's the other part now. You want to understand your churn users, the people that are not converting, that are not staying around. Who are they and who they are? Remember, we did the same thing for the early adopters. You want to do the same thing for the churn users. So what you can do is ask them, hey, you haven't been active in the past 30 days. Why? Have we missed anything? What can we do better? So ask them, look at the data, look at the last things that they touched, the last features. Have they activated? Have they actually done the things that you would expect them to do on day one or on day two? Why not? Maybe there's an onboarding problem. Maybe your email communication is not good. Maybe you're not telling, presenting the value proposition of your product well enough. So what we did at Adobe is we created a Slack channel for the lapsed users. And every time a customer fills a survey with answers on why they haven't been returning, we put it on Slack, and then the entire Spark team at Adobe was able to look at the feedback And here this user is saying, yeah, I like your product, but I wish the animations would stay at the end when I post on Instagram. And then we ask them, can we ask your email? And they do share the email, and then we can reach out and then see if we can actually connect with these users, learn from them, and hopefully build a better product for them. So you want to understand where did they left off, how long have they been dormant for, and really understand how you're going to win them back. Think about it. A user that has been using your product for a year, the way you're going to win that user back, if that user has stopped using the product, is going to be different than a user that hasn't used it for a single day. If your user launched the app, launched your product, played with it for a few seconds and left, again, in terms of winning the user back, it's going to be radically different. But if I use your product for a year and went to a competitor, the way you're going to get me back is different. So think about that. Understand your users when you're going to be reaching out to them to get them back. So we covered the becoming a user, which is the first step. Understanding your early adopters and seeding a community to really fueling that insights, these insights from your advanced users in the center of your product organization. Understand your churn users by sending them a survey and looking at the data to understand where they left off so that you can actually do win-back campaigns in a segmented way. And then now you want to actually look at collecting NPS. And NPS is Net Promoter Score. It is a standard in the industry to consider a pulse of the product. It's very simple. We ask you, hey, how likely would you be to recommend this product to a friend? And you say to people, give a likelihood from 0 to 10. And people who are from 0 to 6 are considered detractors. They are the users that are not really convinced that, that's not the product they will tell their friends about. Then you've got the passives, and then you've got the promoters from 9 to 10. Promoters are great. Okay, they give you 9 to 10. You don't need to worry about that. Passives, not so bad. Maybe you want to still look at, obviously, the feedback. But detractors, you really want to understand why. So you want to really proactively send questions to these people and say, hey, what happened? What did we do wrong? And how can we make the product better? So what we do at Adobe, in Spark, we did it for every user once per quarter. You don't want to ask people every day. That's crazy. You're going to actually get them angry, and they're going to actually give you negative scores. You also want to do it at a point in time when they have experienced the value of the product. I'm sure you've seen these products where they ask you, hey, how likely would you recommend this product? And you're like, hey, chill. I'm just getting started. I haven't even used your product yet. So you want to do it later in time when people have had a time to use the product. And again, remember, you don't want to do it at a point in time when the users are in a psyched moment. In a psych moment means you don't want to do when you got your first like, or when you actually sent your first email, or when you actually were successful with the product. Why? Because now you're biasing the results. If I actually were to ask you at a moment in your life where you're very excited about anything, hey, would you give me some money? You'd say, yeah, I'll give you some money, man. I'm in a happy mood. But so you don't want to do the same thing with users. You want to ask them about your product at a moment where maybe they're not using your product because maybe they're not necessarily influenced by the emotions of using your product. And so what we did here again at Adobe is we have a NPS Slack channel. So we have a survey Slack channel for lapsed users. We also have a NPS Slack channel where we see the feedback from users. Here, for instance, well, I can't use it on Android, so that's a problem. Okay, so we have all these detractors here, and we want to reach out to them. Here's another example of a customer that says that there are some good features, but sometimes there's not enough control. And so what we would do, we would actually tag a product manager and say, hey, why don't you reach out to that customer to understand what's really the problem, and how can we turn this detractor into a promoter? Remember, the goal of NPS is to turn detractors into promoters. It's not just for vanity and say, hoo, people love us, or who, no, sorry, people hate us. It's to turn the detractors into promoters. This is an example of an email that we would send to detractors. Hey, my name is Michaela. I work on Spark. I heard that Spark video was interrupting you. Can we chat so that we can make the experience better. And that's when the customer on the other side of the phone feels like, oh, they care about me. They care about making their product better. So you might have a chance to get that user back, engage, give you feedback, and test your product again. And that feedback from that user will make the product better for everyone. Okay, so we've got here 5 pieces: becoming user, understanding the early adopters, seeding a community, understanding the churn users, collecting NPS. Another big important piece is collecting feature requests. So what are the top requested features? You want to allow your users to participate in the product roadmap. That's extremely important. If you do that, it will make people more loyal because they will actually feel like you're listening. If you don't let people share their voice on the roadmap, you will be perceived as kind of like, dictatorial, in the sense that you really don't want to listen to the community. And you should be loyal to your community. These are users that love your product, and you want to say, hey, please tell us what you want in the product. This will create a community, and this will create a great source of feedback that your product team can learn from. For that, we're using UserVoice.com. We're not affiliated with them. We're not getting paid to obviously put this logo here. We're just using it, and we're standardizing all of our products by using UserVoice. It's a great platform that allows you to basically set up a forum, and everything is taken care of: creation of accounts, polls, management, and everything. And what you do is you put a link from your product to the user voice. You can see here it's Adobe XD for one of our products, .uservoice. For your product, it might be myproduct.uservoice.com. And then people go there, and you can see we have one for Illustrator, we have one for XD, we have one for Spark. It looks similar, it's consistent, and that way it allows people to go there and give you feedback. And you can see here a customer is asking, can you add a font can you add custom fonts or new fonts? And you can actually, as a team member, reply, and all the people that are engaged in the conversation will get notifications when you reply. You can close, you can basically give updates about each feature so that people, your community, stays engaged and sees that you care. And this is a great channel for you for feedback. So this is the back end where you can actually do the management, where you see the feedback and so on. They have a mobile version of the SDK so that you can also provide feedback from the mobile app. This is here Outlook for iOS from Microsoft. How they do it, they have a suggest a feature option, and then it allows you to do that directly, everything from the app natively without going to a website. So then what you can do, you can map feature requests back to users' engagement. And then if we're able to do that, then you can understand, okay, these are the features that people have asked. Are they engaged? Oh, no, most of these features are coming from people that are not very engaged. That's interesting. Does that mean that if we added these features, they would be more likely to use our products? Or maybe these are the features that people have voted for, and all of these features come from people extremely active. So that means that these features are more features for power users. So this helps you for prioritization. Okay, last but not least, we have 2 more. I hope you're still excited, still following. Give me a high five on the chat if you're still excited, following the framework for building customer empathy. So it's very important that you create an opportunity to have FaceTime with your users. And when I say FaceTime, today, in the world we live in, it's very tempting to really never meet the customers in person because we can do everything online. I'm doing this conference online right now. I'm miles and miles away from you, and it's fine. But with your customers, you really want to sit with them. You want to be with them in the room and talking to them, grabbing coffee, or having them meet the team. And you want to observe these people use your product. Think about it. When was the last time you watched your users use your product? Close your eyes and think about it. Was that last week? Last month? Last year? Well, let me tell you, generally, when you look at your users using your product, it generally really realigns you with reality. It really is kind of a slap in the face because you realize how hard it is for people to use the product. We are technically very savvy, all of us, because we use computers. You're attending this conference, you know a lot of technical things, but we are a terrible representation of humans exposed to software. You might do the experience by talking to your dad or your mom or your sister and brother who are not in tech, and you think that things are obvious. It's not. So what you really want to do is spend time with your users, and what you want to do is invite 3 types of users: the new users who have never been exposed to your product, the engaged users, and the churn users. And you want to really understand their experience. And you want to sit with them. You want to look at the body language. You want to look at the workarounds that they go through. You want to look at the limitations that they have. That is extremely important. So spend time with your users physically. You want to ask what, how, why again, and why. Why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? Why did you do that? Why didn't you click on that button? And sometimes people won't do anything. Maybe people will make a smile. People will look just have their confused face, and you want to ask, hey, why were you confused here? These are things that you will never capture in surveys or running queries in Hadoop and getting from your funnel. So what you want to do is really understand these customers, spend time with them, and share these learnings and observation with your product organization. And trust me, when you will have people coming physically to meet your team, meeting your product team, your marketing team, and they will actually hear from a customer live their frustration, it has so much impact, much more than a survey or an interview notes that you're sending on Slack or by email. Finally, what I like to do, and this is the end of the framework, is you want to have both parties learning, your company and your community. And so what we like to do is organize, and this is later stage when you have a little bit of a community now, you want to organize a community summit. And basically it's a one-day online conference through screen sharing where you have your company, your product team sharing to the community what they're working on. And you want to have in the afternoon your product organization listen to how the customers in the community are using the product. And that live feedback is extremely powerful. You get everyone up to the VPs, even the CEO, everyone to attend to really build empathy. You're going to hear so many different customers talk about their frustration or how they love your product. And this is a great way to build a relationship with your customers and again, get the entire product organization to understand what's wrong. Okay, so this is the framework where you have your users at the center of your product organization. That's very simple, but if you follow these steps, and you don't have to do these in that specific order, you end up with a framework that can be really powerful to really put the voice of the customer at the center of your organization. So now the question is, how do you scale? How do you get customers when you have a lot of customers to share their feedback and have that feedback be still shared with your product teams and everyone marketing teams in a way that's still digestible and not overwhelming? So first thing I recommend, don't do everything manually. Use Slack. Slack has a ton of good automation systems and APIs so that you can integrate with a lot of products so that you have that feedback coming on Slack. But all that feedback can be overwhelming. So you need to think about how do you make that data as actionable as possible. So you've got two options here. You have a resource on your team that's going to do that, or all automated. Trust me, I mean, at Adobe, we have a lot of customers and we have a lot of employees, but we don't have everything automated. We still have a lot of people, well, a lot. We have some people in teams dedicated a portion of their time to really doing that work manually. And that's because sometimes it's hard. There's sentiment analysis. There's nuances in the feedback, and it's hard sometimes to automate and make it digestible. But we're looking at services like NomNom or ClaraBridge.com where What they do is you send all that information to them, and they actually aggregate that into actionable insights where they tell you a sentiment analysis or how things are evolving and how things are trending. And that's a good way to make all that stuff more digestible. Okay, now takeaways. So if you have to take a picture, that's really the picture you want to take, is take these notes. You want to hire the right people. You want to talk to non-adopters and early adopters. You want to talk to these both the set of users. You don't want to build a product just for your power users, but for everyone. So it's very important that you don't just listen to the early adopters, but spend a lot of time. Actually, your more active users, you don't need to worry too much about them. Learn from what they're doing so that you can get the other users to do things they do, like we said, through correlation analysis. But really, you want to talk to the people that are not sticking, because maybe that's the biggest opportunity. And maybe you want to even pivot your product, because maybe you'll realize that 90% of your users, which is a huge volume compared to the users that stick, were expecting a different product. Maybe you need to be building this different product. You want to see the community to start getting some of that feedback, some of that loop inside your organization from the people that are using the product. You want to understand what make engaged users stick, like I said before, understanding what's causing churn. And again, sitting down with your users and observing and listening to them in person. Don't fall into the trap of just doing surveys. You want to understand the people. You need to meet with them. Oh, I was able to go into that person's home. It turns out that that person lives in an RV, and that person has a very bad Wi-Fi. And it turns out that actually when the product loads, it takes a long time on that connection. Well, I was able to see that because I was able to see that from my eyes sitting with the person in that RV. That's not something I would have been able to see in a survey. So really sit with people, involve your community in your roadmap on social media. Social media is a two-way street. Communicate, and involve your community. And all of that will help you learn faster and fail faster. You can find me on Twitter, and I'm happy to respond to any questions you have. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Imbert. That was a great insight about how to build a framework within a team, to understand the customer's empathy, and a lot of insight about, the takeaways that you gave are really great. Thank you very much, Mr. Imbert, and have a pleasant evening ahead to you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure presenting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, sir.